All right, well, welcome to the Social Aftermath Talk. We'll be discussing an incident that happened in a financial organization, automotive. Who am I? I am a Thad. Yes, I am not afraid of the DEF CON boards. I'm here to help. So my job, I'm here to protect your money. My job is to be sure that federal projects at the U.S. Treasury comply with federal security and other organizational requirements and rules. My background is actually in application security. I used to be a security consultant before joining Treasury, and I love to hack stuff. I especially like to hack people. I'm a social engineer, and I'm also a veteran of DEF CON 17. Here's a picture of me with the runner-up to the badge hacking contest at DEF CON 17. That was a fun DEF CON. So today we're going to be discussing an incident that happened at an automotive finance company where the credit card numbers and bank information of automotive loan customers were breached. We're going to be looking at the pieces that went into putting this attack together and how the incident response team was able to apply forensic analysis to a social engineering incident, how the company actually changed its processes to be more resilient against social engineers, and now the floor to questions. So our story begins at a reasonably large international finance company, and they have several hundred dealerships throughout the U.S. Well, one of their dealerships in New York got a phone call from one of their customers saying, hey, it looks like some of my information was breached. I've launched an identity theft investigation, and your dealership is part of that investigation. So the dealership manager called the automotive finance company and said, we've had it breached. What do we do? What is the process? And the primary worry is that the dealership portal, the portal where all the information that goes into the loan applications that you might fill out when you buy a car, all that stuff goes through a portal and into the finance company's databases. So the finance company starts to look at their servers, trying to figure out, well, is there evidence of this happening? Is there a mistake on behalf of the dealership? Lo and behold, they find out evidence that over 800 individuals have been affected by this breach. So 800 people have had their loan information breached from this one dealership. What if there's more dealerships? So the manager of the finance company is wondering, how come we didn't see this? How come we weren't the ones that detected the breach? Well, it's not very unusual, because according to the recent, yes, you had a question? Oh, sorry. According to the Verizon threat report, over 70% of breaches are actually reported by a third party. So it's very reasonable that that finance company wouldn't have detected that breach. So the next step, the incident response team for the finance company started to investigate. Their first question was to ask, how long has it been since the actual breach took place? How many of you think it was 1 month? 2 months? 3? 6? A year? 5 months is the average time from the moment the incident happens till someone even notices it happened. Imagine what someone could do with all those accounts in a period of 5 months. So what do we do? First, we start to look at the logs. Do we have a forensic trail of what's been accessed and who was accessing it? Well, this trail led to the finance manager at the dealership. So there's a lot of people talking about firing this guy, arresting him. but they have no proof yet. All they know is that this person logged in, but all the logins happened when he was out of town on vacation. So he's fighting back and saying, look, I was on vacation for over 2 weeks. I didn't log in. So the investigators are wondering, WTF, what's going on here? We have evidence that the account was breached. It was used to access these records, but the finance manager is saying, hey, it wasn't me. So the best way to go after forensics for a financial incident is to follow where the money comes from and where the money goes. So here we have a general map of the flow of money throughout this organization. The dealerships collect information, and it goes to the dealer portal into the databases that are handled. The finance company employees, they go through the finance portal to manage the information that comes from here. Customer service then handles any phone calls for the individual customers of that company. Now, not everyone at the dealership can touch the financial information. Only financial officers of the company can do that. So if you're a hacker or a social engineer, you go after the financial officers, not regular employees, because the regular employees are not very valuable. It's the finance guys, like the finance manager, that you can actually utilize. And the finance company, if you go after help desk, you're not going to really get anywhere. If you go after regular employees, again, low value. However, the individuals to actually process the loan input for the dealerships, the financial managers, financial processors are the ones you go after. Customer service, they're pretty much there to get phone calls from customers. So if you've already breached those first two areas, you can pose as a customer. And that's what it appears has happened here. Somehow the trust relationship between the dealership and the finance company has been breached. Well, we don't know yet how that happened. Well, these different functional groups have call centers. And as we'll see later on in this investigation, these call centers are isolated. Even though they work for the same company, they don't share information. So the investigators know we've had information leaving the organization, we've had a breach. But how do the people know how to map our environment? How was the information collected and processed and used to target attack? So the response team cooperated with the security team to do a little bit of red team. So the blue team took on some red team mojo and went out there just to go us in. This is what they found. So they found the dealer ID numbers that are used to identify each dealership to the call centers. Where did they find these things? It was embedded in the actual HTML code of each web page of the dealership. So if you wanted to, all you have to do is pull up the code, and you can find the dealer code that's used to identify each individual dealership. Also, they found out information about executives and staff that worked at both dealerships and the finance company. They found the IT standards for each dealership that worked for this group. So they knew the infrastructure of each dealership. And this is the part that really amazed me. They actually found conversations on IRC about the finance manager's vacation plans. So hackers were starting to target this person over IRC. So the OSINT went on to find the manager's Facebook account, but it was protected. Further recon uncovered a list of friends that were connected to this person, but also worked at the finance company. So they probed those individuals that became friends with them on Facebook. Well, because they were friends with their manager's friends. They were able to look at the full Facebook profile and collect the manager's full birthday, the pictures of the dealerships, and information on the person's hobbies and what they do socially. So they were able to profile the finance manager even though his account was protected, because he allowed his friends of friends to access his account on Facebook. And here's a picture of the finance manager announcing his vacation on Facebook. Well, further analysis of the access logs proved that during the vacation time, the attacks did not originate from the places where this finance manager was vacationing. So they were able to show, okay, it was not the finance manager. However, someone used his account. So they figure out, well, how did the person get a hold of the credentials? Was there a web vulnerability? Well, server logs discovered that the password recovery page was being used to enumerate accounts. Basically, there was no limit on how many times you could input email addresses to see which ones are valid. And as soon as you hit a valid account, you got this. So for every valid account, the hacker was able to enumerate and collect all of the secret questions for each valid account. So now they have a collection of valid accounts at each dealership, and they know the secret questions for each of those accounts. These are the same questions that will be posed to them during their phone calls to the various call centers. Was there a security breach physically? Well, there was no sign of a physical breach. No one broke into the finance company. However, there were rumors coming from the different call centers that there was a lot of unusual activity. We're talking about unusual requests, unusual indication of problems, viruses in the computer, needs some help, and requests for passwords. Also, the incident response team discovered that there was no script used by the call centers to determine, well, I need to escalate this phone call because it's unusual, or someone's asking for things that are inappropriate. They pretty much went with whatever they wanted to do. Interestingly, with the different activities, there was a separation between employees of the company and the contractors at the finance company. The employees had annual security training, full training with everything covered. The contractors had a shorter version of that. So now we have two groups with different security knowledge and processes. The employees at the company worked the day shift for the call centers. Contractors work night shift. So now we have call center people that don't have the same security knowledge working at night than those working during the day. And also the employees were more likely to escalate phone calls that were suspicious, whereas the contractors, now and then, they were more likely to be targets of people calling. This was verified by call center logs that showed increased call volumes after hours during this 2-week period of time that the manager was on vacation. The content of these logs also revealed that there were recorded notifications of people saying that all of a sudden there were problems with the RSA key fobs. They were being used to access systems. Now these logs were escalated to IT, and IT was saying there's no problem here. We don't know why we're getting these phone calls. But these phone calls kept coming and coming and coming. So the investigators suspected this could be the avenue through which people are accessing the other systems that might be affected. What can someone do with this access point, the Citrix access point? They could get a hold of the virtual desktop for whatever role they're logging in as. They can get a hold of the associated corporate assets. However, access requires an RSA key. Who here thinks that's good enough? Is that really good enough security? Well, a loan manager called with an urgent need to access the network and said, my RSA key fob is not working. I'm typing in the code, but it's not accepting it. I need you to help me out. So the people on the other end disable the RSA key. It's a manager calling. He needs to get something done. So we'll give him access. This happened 3 months before the incident was reported. So now we know this was a social engineering attack. Latest report shows that 29% of breaches last year had a social part within them. They may not have been totally social engineering, but part of them were. That's 4 times increase since the year before. So who here has done network pivoting in their pen tests? Anyone has done trust pivoting with social engineering? That's what's happening here. Basically, we have a finance manager and a loan manager that have trust relationships with their individual companies. The companies, the dealership and the finance company also have a trust relationship. And the attackers were able to use social media to discover individuals that shared trust relationships between each other and the companies. And they leveraged that to get assets of the individual companies themselves. So here the same idea of pivoting was applied to people and companies as opposed to networks. So now the incident response team knows what happened. What do we do next? How do we prepare ourselves to fight the next round of attacks? Well, as I'm sure anyone here that has an automotive loan knows, the basis of the company is customer service. So we can't just shut everything down and fix things. We need to stay up and focus on the finance office employees, the dealership employees, and also the relationship with loan customers. But we need to understand where things broke. As we've already seen, the poor security training coverage between employees and contractors is part of the problem. The lack of an enforced call center script is also an issue. There was no enforced escalation process for phone calls that were suspicious. So if someone had gotten a phone call asking for help with the RSA key, what do you guys think should have happened? Do you think they should have shut off the RSA key option?
Should have at least checked some logs to see if that corresponded to what was happening.
Well, see, what was interesting was you had all this previous activity, all these complaints, that there were problems. So the call center probably thought, oh, this makes sense. We've heard about this RSA key option or the problem. So we'll go ahead and help this guy out because the attack makes sense. What I think should have happened is that should have been escalated to an IT manager, someone that could address the issue in some other way, other than shutting them off. But from a incident analysis perspective, there was no interconnected communication between the systems at the dealerships and the call centers. There was no way to correlate data across these different areas. So there was no way to identify the problem earlier to reduce that time gap between incident and discovery. Now, I'm sure we all know, we have some ideas of what we could do, but that we can't afford to do everything. So the team proposed some things to management And these were the changes that they accepted. So they improved the training program to equalize the training offered between employees and contractors. They started to tag suspect phone calls for efficient retrieval for future incidents. So if someone called asking for a password, that phone call would get tagged with metadata to later on retrieve it if there was an incident. Anything that was unusual would get tagged. And a documented escalation process was established for all 3 call center areas. Also, 2 major products were evaluated to correlate all this data together. I really can't say which one was selected, but these were the 2 that were looked at. So to recap, the organization was prepared to handle a certain kind of attack. They weren't prepared for social engineering at this level. They went through a process of detection and analysis and were able to determine the nature of the attack and discovered that it wasn't really a network attack, it was socially driven. They were able to contain it, do post-incident analysis, and modify their playbook in dealing with future incidents. But more importantly, they were able to drive changes in the organization so that they were able to provide better customer service while providing better security. So the response team learned that critical systems can be overridden by social influence, and they learned that there was a serious defect in the way they were correlating different events across the enterprise. The company learned that they need to communicate more effectively, but also they need to learn how to say no and still provide good customer service. Are there any questions? Well, if you want to contact me, here's my email address. I'm Secure Lexicon on Twitter. Here's a shout out to the MySec organization in Michigan. Thank you so much.